The Shrine of Eternal Judgment stood at the heart of the Galactic Council's most sacred district, a monument to the divine that had existed for 17,000 cycles. Its crystalline spires pierced the violet sky of Sanctum Prime, and its halls had witnessed offerings from 1,000 species across 100 star systems. Yet for the past 3 standard years, the temple had remained silent, its ancient mechanisms refusing every tribute laid before its altar. One stood at the base of the temple steps, his weathered hands gripping the straps of his daughter's backpack. Around him, representatives from the most advanced civilizations in known space gathered in their finest ceremonial robes, carrying offerings worth more than entire planetary economies. "Another human?" sneered Ambassador Vexthar, his 6 eyes gleaming with contempt. The Xylothian diplomat gestured dismissively with 3 of his 4 arms. "Your species has only been part of the council for 2 decades. What makes you think your primitive offerings would succeed where our ancient wisdom has failed?" Juan said nothing. He simply knelt down to his daughter's level and smiled. "Ready, Mija?" 7-year-old Annabelle nodded enthusiastically, her dark curls bouncing as she adjusted her worn sneakers. In her small hands, she clutched a piece of paper, a crayon drawing she'd made that morning in their cramped quarters aboard the human diplomatic vessel. The assembled dignitaries parted reluctantly as Juan and Annabelle climbed the 300 crystalline steps. Behind them, Juan could hear the whispers, the barely concealed laughter. The Carathians had brought a perfect sphere of compressed starlight, worth enough credits to terraform a dead world. The Plenarians had offered a living song, preserved in stasis for 6 millennia. The Draconids had carried a piece of their homeworld's sacred mountain, blessed by 10 generations of shamans. All had been rejected. The temple's entrance loomed before them, its surface swirling with colors that existed beyond most species' visible spectrum. Annabelle paused, her small hand finding her father's larger one. "Papa, why does everyone think we'll fail?" One squeezed her hand gently. "Because they measure everything in credits and cycles, Mija. They've forgotten what really matters." Inside, the temple was vast and empty. Bioluminescent patterns danced across walls that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. At the chamber's center stood the altar of truth, a simple pedestal of unknown material that had analyzed and rejected 3,472 offerings since the silence began. Previous offerings still littered the chamber. The starlight sphere sat dimmed in one corner. The living song's stasis pod hummed uselessly against a wall. Precious metals and artifacts worth kingdoms lay scattered like worthless pebbles. Annabelle approached the altar without hesitation. Her sneakers squeaked against the polished floor, the only sound in the cavernous space. She looked up at her father one more time, and Juan nodded encouragingly. With careful, deliberate movements, Annabelle placed her crayon drawing on the altar's surface. It was not sophisticated. The proportions were wrong, the colors bled outside the lines, and the technique was that of a child who had only recently mastered holding a crayon properly. It showed 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, holding hands beneath a yellow sun. Above them, in shaky letters, she had written, "Me and Papa. I love you." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the temple sang. The sound was not audible in the traditional sense. It resonated in the chest, in the bones, in the soul itself. The walls blazed with light, patterns that had been dormant for 3 years suddenly exploding into life. The altar began to glow, and Annabelle's simple drawing lifted into the air, spinning slowly as if caught in an invisible wind. One watched in awe as the temple's ancient intelligence, whatever force had built this place millennia ago, analyzed the offering. He saw the crayon lines begin to shimmer, saw the colors intensify and spread, saw something profound happening that he couldn't fully comprehend. The drawing dissolved into pure light, and that light spread throughout the entire chamber, then throughout the entire temple, then erupted into the sky above Sanctum Prime itself. Outside, the assembled ambassadors and dignitaries stumbled backward as pillars of radiance shot into the atmosphere. The temple's voice, silent for so long, spoke directly into every mind present, in every language simultaneously. 17,000 cycles I have stood. 17,000 cycles I have received offerings of wealth, power, beauty, and knowledge. All were transactions. All were purchases. All were attempts to buy divine favor. This child offered not tribute, but love, not price, but value, not what she possessed, but what she felt. For the first time since my creation, an offering was given that expected nothing in return, that the humans have taught an old god a new lesson. The greatest offerings cannot be measured, cannot be bought, cannot be quantified. They can only be felt. Inside the temple, Annabelle turned to her father, confused by all the fuss. Papa, did I do something wrong? Everyone's being really loud. One laughed, tears streaming down his face, and swept his daughter into his arms. No, Mija, you did everything right. You just reminded the universe what we humans have always known, that the most powerful things aren't things at all. The temple's mechanisms had reawakened. Its ancient systems hummed with renewed purpose. And in the council chambers above, ambassadors who had ruled for centuries suddenly found themselves reevaluating everything they thought they knew about worth, value, and the strange, emotional species from the little blue planet called Earth. Annabelle never fully understood what her crayon drawing had accomplished, but she kept making them, one for every species in the council, each one given freely, each one a reminder that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology, their weapons, or their wealth. That it was their capacity to love, freely and without condition, and to recognize that sometimes the simplest gifts carry the greatest truth.